It's 3 p.m. in New Delhi, it's 9 p.m. in Sydney, Australia. And all of those countries are countries that we want to do business with as a 21st century city. So when we talk about how street lighting contributes to that, it means while you can sit in your house and be connected, there are times when you need to be able to move around in the middle of the night. And if the road is lit, then it means that you can connect with the Lagosians at that time of the night and they can feel like they can work in a 24-hour city.
Street lights form a very paramount aspect of this administration's agenda. We have a very aggressive energy development plan, and the street lights forms a cardinal part of the security agenda and the themes agenda for the Babajide Sanwo-Olu government.
The Smart City Street Light project is going to be on for 6 months, and it's going to be on Class A and Class B roads as well as designated public spaces.
This will enable a functional 24-hour economy and generally improve security in public spaces.
Public space lighting is more than just ensuring that the street lights are available. It's a comfort and the security that it brings to the citizens of Lagos that's more important.
Once there's light, economic life continues. Improve resources, improve sense of responsibility, improve security.
So if you want to know what's happening in a particular area of Lagos that has a street light on it, there's a camera that can tell you what's going on. So you don't have to be there physically, but everybody knows that they're being watched, and it also helps to guide their actions.
It helps security a lot, reduction in crime rate, promotion of a nighttime economy, and general overall development and safety of lives and property of Lagosians, in addition to even better experience for motorists and general aesthetics for Lagosians.
The Lagos State Electricity Board, with the supervision of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, has embarked on the Street Light Retrofit project by replacing the conventional HPS street lights in the state with smart LED lighting, thereby increasing the efficiency of street lights in Lagos State. These smart LED street lights are designed to be controlled and monitored remotely.
We are able to monitor them remotely, and we are also able to dim the lights in some areas where there's less activity and make it brighter in other areas where there's more activity.
The new street lights that we're putting in Lagos have a few advantages. One of the advantages is that they're connected, meaning each one of those street lights is transmitting. The other advantage is that they're much more efficient. It also helps reduce our cost of running the street lights, because in areas where there's no grid connection, then we have to use alternative power to supply them.
They cost much less to maintain, which is a major cost driver for the changing of the lights from the HPS to the LED.
The Lagos State government has leveraged private sector partnerships to accelerate this infrastructure intervention in making Lagos State a 21st century economy.
Lagos State is now entering into an agreement where they only pay for output. What that means is that the service level, which can now be monitored effectively with remote monitoring, ensures Lagos State doesn't get paid for services that is not delivered.
As Lagos evolves to a smart city, the utilization of smart and energy-efficient streetlights is vital for the government to ensure security of lives and properties while improving socio-economic activities of Lagosians.
There will be an improvement in nighttime economy of the state. More market women will be able to work later into the night. They usually sit under these lights to engage in their trading activities.
We've gone around Lagos to talk to people where there have been improvements in street lights, and they've all told us that they like it and they want it to stay that way.
I've been doing this business now for 1 year. So last month they now brought this light for us.
Láti ìgbà tí wọ́n ti ṣe iná yìí fún wa, Ọlọ́run gba gbogbo ògo. A rí pé wọ́n ń bọ̀ lọ́tùn, wọ́n ń bọ̀ lósì, ipò lè ń jà lọ́tùn, lè ń jà lósì.
Before they used to rob us here, but thank God for the lights, because sometimes even some guys they will just come with their bike and come and rob both my customers. They will collect their phones, their money, and move.
Kò sí yẹn níbẹ̀ mọ́, Ọlọ́run ó bá fi òpin sí yẹn.
These lights, they bring customers to me. Like now, I don't use torchlight again. Before I used to charge torchlight like 300 in a day. Even sometimes you not even see where to charge your lights.
Torí alẹ́ náà la máa ń wá síta. Ó máa ń tó nǹkan bíi 7 ká tó bẹ̀rẹ̀ ọjà.
Now we can close by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
Àsìkò tí wọ́n fún wa ní iná yìí, a mọ̀ torí pé iná yìí ó jẹ́ àǹfààní gidi fún wa.
Thank God for the lights, and I really appreciate for it.
In areas where street lights used to be on sometimes, off sometimes, they're permanently on.
The Lagos State government is on course to actualizing the Babajide Sanwo-Olu-led administration's commitment to ensure full
Mr. Governor, the Governor of Lagos State, and indeed the chief host today, who is the brain actually behind all that is going down today. I'm talking about Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu. Members of the National Assembly here present, particularly the Chairman, House Committee on Power, ably represented by Honorable Engineer Atigwe Simon Chukwuemeka, Honorable Rotimi Agunsoye, Honorable Ademorin Kuye, and Honorable Dolapo Badro. Members of the Lagos State Assembly here present, particularly the Chairman, House Committee on Energy, Honorable Folajimi Mohammed. Members of the State Executive Council here present, particularly the Honorable Commissioner for Energy and Mineral Resources, Mr. Olalere Odushote. Body of Permanent Secretaries here present, particularly the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Ms. Shola Shashore. General Managers and Heads of Government Agencies and Bodies here present. Members of the organized private sector here present, partners of the Lagos State government here present, gentlemen of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to welcome each and every one of you to this event. My name is Busola Kukoyi. I'm not here alone. I also have Mojibade Shosoya.
Thank you very much, Busola, for that introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Governor, I'd like to warmly welcome everyone to the Lagos State Electricity Policy Unveiling. Energy supply is currently the single biggest infrastructural and developmental challenge in Lagos State. It is no news that Lagos State depends entirely on Nigeria's national grid for its public electricity supply, and same applies to other parts of the country. The Lagos State Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, with a responsibility to promote and develop sustainable policies for reliable energy for all residents of Lagos State, has embarked on several initiatives to further drive this cause. This takes us closer to number 7 of the UN Sustainable Development Goal, which is affordable and clean energy, even as we make Lagos State a 21st century economy. It is on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that I'd like to warmly welcome everyone to this auspicious occasion, the Lagos State Electricity Policy Unveiling. My name, like my co-anchor said, is Mojibade Shosoya. I'm delighted to be the co-anchor here, and to our virtual audience, you are not left out. Welcome to the Lagos State Electricity Policy Unveiling. We want you to keep the energy running, so just keep it rolling in the chat room. You're welcome once again. Today promises to be a very fulfilling one, even as we get on conversations that drive us closer to making Lagos State the center of excellence, a smart city. Once again, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mujibadi. At this point in time, Mr. Governor, all courtesies duly extended, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to invite up to the podium to formally welcome each and every one of us, the Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Please, can you put your hands together for Mr. Olalere Odushote.
Mr. Governor, may I have your permission to stand on existing protocols? Members of the EXCO, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have a tradition in the Lagos Executive Council. When something happens that is delightful to you, you let everybody know. This is one of the happiest days of my life. We have come a long way. We've been battling with electricity supply challenges in Lagos, and we haven't been able to do a lot about it. Everybody is aware of the steps that Lagos has taken in the past, from facilitating the Enron barges, to developing IPPs to supply power to Lagos state institutions, to intervening with transformers, hundreds and hundreds of transformers in all parts of Lagos, just to ease the energy supply challenges of Lagos. But all of that has not led to the improvements that we expect. When the Power Sector Reform Act was passed many years ago, all of the federal government agencies involved in power were the only ones able to address the power challenges of the country. And therefore, one regulator only from Abuja was the one that was instituted to start to look at regulating electricity across the country. That has not yielded the fruit that we expected it to have yielded. 8 years after privatization, we're still struggling with the same amount of power per capita that we had at that time. So we can't say that improvements have happened. On the panel today, we're going to have a few people tell us how we can look at a Lagos energy market and how we can bring it to start to address the challenges of energy supply in Lagos. The Lagos state government is committed to improving electricity supply in Lagos, and that's why we're here today. We have looked at the energy supplies in Lagos. We have looked at the ability to generate energy in Lagos. We've looked at the demand for energy supply in Lagos, and we've come up with a policy that is going to define and describe the short-term, the mid-term, and the long-term requirements that will lead to universal energy supply in Lagos. I would like to invite you to join us on that journey. Mr. Governor is here. He's approved the electricity policy. He's been part and parcel of it. There were two big challenges that Lagosians threw at us on the campaign trail. The first one was transportation and traffic management. You have seen, all of you who live in Lagos have complained about gridlocks due to roadworks. You've seen the improvement in the roads that have happened, and you know that we're committed to doing that. The second biggest problem is the one we're starting to address today, which is electricity supply. Hitherto, Lagos State has not been able to control electricity supply in Lagos, given that all of the control came from Abuja. Starting today, we're going to be working at looking at that. And that's why this panel will be telling us, they'll be answering questions on what they believe that we can do in line with the policy to create a Lagos energy market. I want you to listen, ask questions if you need to, and join us on this journey. I thank you all for listening to me. Thank you.
I think we can do better than that. Let's applaud the Honorable Commissioner for the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm particularly excited about today's occasion because it just shows that Lagos takes initiative. Lagos is very forward-thinking. As we move on today, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Governor, it gives me great pleasure to bring up our keynote paper, which will be speaking on accelerating sustainable energy for all ahead of 2030. This will be done virtually, and our speaker is Damilola Ogunbiyi, the Chief Executive Officer and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All and co-chair of the UN Energy. Ladies and gentlemen, with a resounding round of applause, let's welcome on screen our keynote paper presenter, Damilola Ogunbiyi. A resounding round of applause. Thank you.
I have to thank the Governor, the Honorable Commissioner, especially my brother, Honorable Commissioner for Energy. in Nigeria. A lot of money can be spent on mini grids, on solar home systems, on integrated grid solutions that make these things work properly. And then we also have how we're going to increase the clean cooking challenge. This will actually be all live very, very soon. I think second week in January, and it will be able to be shared with everybody on how Nigeria's least cost electrification should actually work and how Lagos can fit in there. The other thing I wanted to touch on was when His Excellency President Buhari did say net zero by 2040, I think some people were like, how does that work? And how Lagos's policy also fits in is because Lagos policy doesn't only think about power supply. This is the electrification of an entire economy. So this is transportation, building, industry, and power that you have to look at. And you have to look at what the economic benefits are. So I think I'm going to close on this slide to just show the scale of benefits for going cleaner and greener and for electrifying people. First, job creation is key. One of the job and gender targets I like is that women in particular can earn 59% more money just by having access to energy, which finally puts them on par with their male counterparts. You know, reduction in wastage of food, healthier people, and for every 1,000 connections you make, you can actually create about 25 jobs. So it's really important to put all these different things together. I'm really proud of this policy that Lagos has put together. I know it has taken a lot of work, and us at the United Nations are fully committed to making sure the implementation runs smoothly. So thank you so much for listening. And like I said, this presentation will be made available to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damilola Ogunbi, for your very detailed and also somewhat passionate presentation. Indeed, the importance of going green and cleaner cannot be overemphasized, and we also applaud your commitments from the United Nations to supporting Lagos State on implementing the Lagos State electricity policy. Thank you very much. Can we please give another round of applause? As we move on today, just before we get into the plenary session, I would like to quickly reiterate, especially to our virtual community, that if you have questions, please drop them in the comment section or the Q&A box. Someone will pick up and will address the questions after the plenary session. As we move on today, Mr. Governor, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to bring up our keynote address speaker. This is the Attorney General and Honorable Commissioner for Lagos State Ministry of Justice, Mr. Moyosore Onigbanjo, SAN, who is ably represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Justice, Titilayo Shitu. The keynote address is centered on developing the Lagos State electricity law. Please join me as I welcome the Permanent Secretary of Justice, Titilayo Shitu, with a resounding round of applause. Thank you. I beg your pardon, it's Titilayo Shita Bay. I apologize for that. Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Justice, Titilayo Shita Bay, will be representing the Attorney General and Honorable Commissioner for Justice, Lagos State, Mr. Moyosore Onigbanjo, SAN. Please applaud her. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Governor, Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu. Good afternoon, members of the Executive Council of Lagos State, bodies of Permanent Secretaries here present, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and members of the press. Well, I must admit that we don't have a paper prepared for this, but we've been part of the journey of developing this electricity policy. The policy is really a document geared towards the provision of universal and reliable electricity access to all residents of the state. And the drafters of the policy postulated it seeks to provide clarity as to the perspective of the state in respect of the electricity market. Now, just like Mrs. Ogunboyi had identified, and also the Honorable Commissioner for Energy, it is about time indeed that we address the issue of energy in Lagos State. The problem had been the constitutional challenges, the fact that the control of energy is centered with the federal government. Now, this policy is bringing about a new direction, which is commendable and which we intend to support. Now, we have gotten to the stage where, after several consultations and in collaboration with a private law firm, developed a bill, a proposed bill which entails the objectives of this policy. Now, before the law, we are determined to bring about a robust law to create a legal framework that would enable Lagos State to implement as envisaged in the policy, in the electricity policy. Therefore, it is the position of the Ministry of Justice that the outcome of conversations of this nature, this is a stakeholders meeting, we have panelists, and the policies to be discussed. The outcome of this meeting will help us to develop the bill better. We'll be able to take into consideration what is being said and what is being recommended and add to the bill. On that note, I'll just have to say that thank you very much for listening.
Please, can we applaud the Permanent Secretary once again? Ms. Titilayo Shitabi, we thank you very much. Indeed, power is a necessity for the development of any community, more especially a state that is transiting from mega city to smart city. Lagos cannot be left behind, and therefore at this event we will be having a panel session. Mr. Governor, the moderator of this session is a gentleman who for the last 30 years or more have continued to manage or directly participate in major FDI transactions of the country. He is the founding partner of Alexis and Mr. Soji Awogbade has been the head of the group's Energy and Natural Resources Practice Group. His area of expertise spans across oil and gas projects, finance, investments, securities, environmental law, and company law. Mr. Governor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please applaud with me the moderator of session, Mr. Soji Awogbade. I think this legal luminary, I make bold to say, deserves a better round of applause.
afternoon. Good afternoon. It's very heavy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, especially Mr. Governor. Mr. Governor, you know that this room has a symbolism for both you and I in matters like this. So I am very happy that you are sitting to work through this session with us. Without further ado, let me invite the more important people who have been selected to sit on this panel. In no particular order, because it is a galaxy of very important power people in power, let me invite, thank you. Hello. Please let me invite, with all warmth, my dear friend, Mrs. Audrey Joe Ezigbo. My mother told me, if you want your dinner, when you want to say good morning, say, good morning, ma. Audrey, you're very welcome. Are you going to sit her, please? Next, let me call on a giant in power, in every sense of the word, by participation, by role, and by personal physical description. Mr. Kola Adesina, who is chairman Ikeja Electric PLC. Kola, you are very welcome, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. I am doing sweet and sour. So the next person I'm going to call on as a panelist is my dear sister, Dr. Dolapo Fashawe, who is General Manager of LASEPA. Although the subject is power, she's come with fireworks from the Environment Department. Dolapo, welcome. Next, let me call on another giant, Mr. Chinua Azubuike, the Chief Executive of the Infrastructure Credit Guarantee Company Limited. Chinua is a giant in power. You have dropped your label. You might be asked out of the hall. I understand that the wires are going to make it possible for Mr. Tunde Gbajumo, who is the Deputy Chief of Party Power Africa, the Nigeria Power Sector Program, to join us virtually. Technical, do you confirm that that is in order? Oh, wonderful. I do apologize that for the time being, Mr. Ade Adeola, Managing Director, Energy and Natural Resources, Standard Chartered Bank, is not here with us yet. We expect that he will be here. He told the organizers that he would make the event. But let me hasten very quickly, because as you see from your program, we have been allotted a grand sum of 35 minutes. How they expect these experts to deliver in that time, we shall see. And therefore, I have told my experts, you will only get one question. One question which you'll be entitled to answer in 7 minutes. But I can promise you that each question comes loaded, very double-barreled, and we are going to get all of these facts out of you, ladies and gentlemen, before you leave this panel today. Let me start with you, Mr. Gbajumo. We hear all sorts of acronyms in power. IRP, PSSP, NDP. We don't even hear APC. We hear APC, Auxiliary Power Control, APC, yes. We hear all these acronyms. Can you make sense out of all of them for us? Because all we care about really is that while we're having this program and are sleeping at home, power remains on. Mr. Bajumo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aogbade. I hope you can all hear me clearly. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Governor, permit me to stand on the existing protocols. The Integrated Resource Plan, the IRP, that we have put together is a roadmap for how Lagos can meet its current and future electricity demand. It's a 20-year plan that covers the period 2020 to 2040. It gives Lagos different development pathways for achieving reliable electricity. And it does this by going through different facets of the power value chain. So one major pillar of the plan is a least cost generation plan. You would have heard Ms. Odigubi earlier referring to a least cost generation plan as a part of the planning that happens in the power sector. So the first part of it is that you looked at the least cost generation plan for Lagos. The second part of it is the least cost transmission plan. So what's your transmission plan? How do you ensure that you achieve your 20-year electricity demand plan for Lagos with transmission infrastructure? And then the third pillar of it is the distribution plan. So this is looking at the two distribution companies in Lagos, what level of investment is required, which specific projects need to be done to achieve Lagos aspirations to assure universal, reliable, uninterrupted electricity for Lagosians. And those are kind of the three pillars of this plan. To put the plan together, I must start off by commending Mr. Governor, because Mr. Governor, at the earliest stages of his administration, started this conversation about planning for electricity in Lagos. And I think the commissioner earlier mentioned that the two cardinal programs that they were interested in was transport and electricity. So we met Mr. Governor very early in his administration, and he wanted this problem dealt with. So between USAID Power Africa, the Honorable Commissioner and his team in the Ministry of Energy, we put together a team under the guidance of a very experienced international IRP expert who has done this for more than 20 years all over the world. We assembled a team of the two distribution companies, Eko and Ikeja. We brought in gas suppliers. We brought in the transmission company of Nigeria. We brought in the generators that are currently operating in Lagos and those who have aspirations to come and invest in Lagos. And with that team, we put together a plan that's now going through validation. I think that I'd like to stop there. I don't want to take all of my 7 minutes because I'm sure Mr. Aogbade has questions for me. But in general, that's what the plan seeks to achieve. It's 20-year energy sustainability for Lagos. Thank you.
Indeed, today I think you read my mind. The truth about the subject that we're discussing is integrated nature. And when any subject matter is integrated.
I can't hear you, Mr. Aogbade.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm talking very loudly here.
Okay, now I can.
Now you can? Okay.
Yes.
Well, when a matter is integrated, it means that several parts of that chain are in the control of different authorities, powers, or persons. Power is particularly weak to that nuance. Our next panelist is coming at this power situation from a fuel supply point of view. We all know that Lagos is not yet the hydrocarbon capital of the world, of Nigeria, let alone the world. So we're going to require hydrocarbons to drive our turbines. Whether it is dirty hydrocarbons or clean hydrocarbons, we're going to need something of hydrocarbons until 2050, I understand, before they shut you guys down. As we sit now, we are looking at gas as the finest fuel to drive power. Audrey, you have been chairman of Gas This, Gas That for many years. What is your plan for us in Lagos State? How can you support our energy drive such that we don't have what happened to the federal government of Nigeria, which built 7 power plants and did not have pipelines to take gas to them?
Thank you very much, Soji, Mr. Governor, Honorable Commissioner, members of the Executive Council, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. That's a very good question because indeed, as you've pointed out, the conversation around gas in Nigeria has been on for quite a while, and for a country that is as resource-rich as we are very much at the very early stages along the journey. I want to commend Lagos State for, in the first place, keeping the conversation about energy and the building of a local electricity market forefront. And gas has a critical role to play in this. So as you know, that in Nigeria, as it is, we have over 70, almost 80% of our power generation is thermal power. And we do consider that gas is one of the key resources that we have that can enable a very rapid ramping up of the power generation, transmission, distribution for the end customer. So the way that those of us who are in the gas space are positioning is this, and that's the infrastructure play. So we're trying to address the supply side dynamics, and then we expect and we seek for the support and collaboration of the government to deal with the demand side, and I'll explain that a bit. So companies like my company Falcon, like Axela, and a few others, we play in the deploying of the distribution infrastructure that is then taking the gas off the major feeder pipelines and taking for use in different forms of industry where they're replacing gas, knocking off the liquid fuels and then using gas as fuel or as feedstock. And we need to see a lot more of this coming to the fore. When you consider that Lagos is also like the industrial base of the nation, right? We need to see that replicated. We want to see more gas infrastructure that now goes to feed into residential estates, for instance, enabling the auto gas sector. And I think Lagos is already doing some work in this regard, but it's now a matter of scale, given the population dynamics and the move from mega city to smart city. So we, on our side, are partnering from the investment point of view. And this is whether you're talking about those of us who are doing distribution pipelines in the ground, that's PNG. We have a lot of players who are coming in with CNG, with LNG, different virtual technologies just to enable the distribution and delivery. But there's a flip side to this, and that's where the partnership and collaboration is required to make this a reality. So there are things that we would want to see from the government side to enable those kinds of investments. For instance, we would like to see a more concerted collaboration between the government and the private sector players, some of the agencies of government, some of the costs and overheads that add on to the cost of these investments and make them not quite as attractive as they are. I mean, a simple road crossing can set you some significant millions added onto your project. So those kinds of things we want to look at. What kind of fiscal incentives can the government put on the table to enable us to expand our infrastructure and allow other new players to come in? But it's also important, and I will just anchor my first comments with this, to look at the demand side. And that is that when it comes to the narrative around gas, outside of power, if we're talking smart, sustainable cities, we're also thinking about heavy industries. We're thinking about other off-takers of the gas that comes to the fore, because the gas projects, they're very capital intensive. So we need to see the molecular volumes that make the project economics viable. What that means, therefore, is that we would like to partner with government in looking at how we can attract and enable those kind of heavy off-takers, right? So yes, it's great we're doing the street lights, it's great we're doing the auto gas, but we want to see heavy industries that off-take gas here in country. And I think that if we work it out properly, it's even possible to have both the providers as the suppliers working in partnership with government to put in place some of those kind of demand infrastructure. I mean, those kind of models do exist in some countries. So this is how gas can help, but it must be a concerted partnership, especially in the climes we're in, where we're seeing a lot of de-investment from hydrocarbon projects as it is. Thanks, Soji.
Audrey, you know me, I will take you up. Are you confirming to the governor of Lagos State that the molecules are there?
So this is the thing. Thank you that's a great question, because a lot of what we see in Lagos are volumes that are coming from the Niger Delta region. But we know that Lagos also has some gas. And this is the question then of how do we make those, how do we commercialize those? What are the issues, what are the niggling challenges that have prevented those molecules from coming to the fore? What role between the players who own those assets and the government, what kind of partnership can be put in place to resolve some of those issues? Because as it is, most of us know that really when we're talking about gas in Lagos, the Alps and the Alps to the looping. And those are lines that you want to, they kind of, nobody wants to be dealing with a single source of supply in anything. So you want to be able to have a more robust gas market, even as you're thinking about the local market here. And that means looking at what volumes you can readily control in nearby fields. So that's a conversation that can be enabled, again, by the government in closer partnership with the players. Otherwise, yes, for those of us who are dependent on the Niger Delta, the molecules that flow through the Alps, we've seen so far that sometimes we have hiccups, there's vandalizations, sometimes it's asset integrity issues that constrain ability to supply. But we do our best as investors to make sure that those downtimes are minimized as much as is possible to make sure that the end market is getting the volumes they need as contracted.
Now, the point at which you have landed is to assure Lere to go forward with this policy and Lagos government to back it with government will. How will you get the politics of this right? We don't control gas policy.
Right, that's an excellent, obviously gas is on the table today, but Soji is my brother, so we have these conversations a lot. Yes, there are big national conversations happening around gas on the regulatory front, and unfortunately sometimes conflicting messages that come, policy is speaking one thing and then the sound bites we get are saying something else entirely, and it's about what are we signaling. What I know is that between the Nigerian Gas Association, other industry groups, as you know, the IPPG is there, OPTS is there, and of those of us who are private players, we're continuously engaging, and that's the best that we can literally do, not to let the narrative to die, and see how we continue to come forward with our own workable solutions, because sometimes it's just a matter of shifting ground, not necessarily, going totally against the policy that is on ground, because we want to make sure that the investors are not constrained in terms of, when you put several millions of dollars on the ground, you want to see how you're going to get your money back. In that narrative, now pricing has been one huge concern, right? People say, oh, the cost of gas in Nigeria is too expensive. Generally speaking, the cost of doing business in Nigeria is ridiculously expensive, and that's because we have all these add-on costs. Apart from rent-seeking, security is a huge one right now in the industry, and so on and so forth. So if we're talking Lagos State and we're talking how do we, get more power to Lagos, for instance, it might be that the Lagos State government wants to look at private partnerships that center around captive and embedded projects, where you have a unique pricing. Because you see, this is the thing we've been talking about, that you grow the market not by legislation, you grow it by competition. What this means is that if we're able to enable more players to come in, the competitive forces ultimately will push those prices down. But we can't keep saying we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the investors, and yet we put price points that make no sense. So we may be having those challenges nationally, but I see Lagos State as a very proactive, very forward-thinking state that can come up with its own models that work for the state and make more investors flow into the states, and then competitive forces ultimately will deal with those. And that's the reality. We've seen it work in many places. I don't see why it will be any different here.
Okay, so we have one conclusion on the table. We can carve out Lagos for power. Because if we are waiting for this national grid to emerge, Larry, we are 30% of our population is served by the grid. Am I right? 30 or so. So if we're waiting for this grid to kick in for us, and we're ignoring solutions like this, we will wait a long time. I just wanted to anchor that. We have one solution on the table. Next, I am going to drive to the doorstep of those who actually put these things together. Chinua, your participation in power has been lauded, applauded, and sometimes questioned. What exactly do you need to make the Lagos power market a bankable environment?
Thank you, Soji. Can you hear me? Mr. Governor, I stand on existing protocols, permit me to do so. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll just start by giving a bit of a background. So I work for InfraCredit, Infrastructure Credit Guarantee Company. We were established to help promote long-term financing in local currency for infrastructure in Nigeria. InfraCredit is backed by the Sovereign Wealth Fund, Africa Finance Corporation, KFW Development Bank, the Africa Development Bank, Infraco Africa, and Garanco. So we have a AAA local currency rating, and the essence for which we were established was to mobilize local financing from pension funds, institutional investors into infrastructure in Nigeria. And prior to our existence, there was a market gap. So companies struggled to raise financing of longer than 5 years. And the bank financing was also challenging because of the high interest rates. And we've been able to, demonstrate that it is possible to actually finance up to 20-year financing in Nigeria. And that was possible mainly if you look at the companies we've supported with our guarantees. They're based, two of them are based in Lagos. The first one, in 2017, is a company that operates about 3 of the IPPs, that was mentioned, and was able to raise 10-year financing. And this was mainly the local pension funds. So I think what is necessary to highlight is that Lagos presents a bankable market for institutional investors, but subject to certain, conditions to make it sustainable. And a lot has been said. What is very clear is that the integrated nature of the market requires collaboration across the value chain. We have had to work with gas distribution companies and also the processors to ensure that when we finance an asset, that there is predictability, but not just on the demand side, but also on the supply side. And so what is the opportunity we see? The local capital available, if we look at the amount of pension assets, it's sized about Naira equivalent of $30 billion. It grows at over 15% per annum. About 35% of that, which is equivalent of about $10 billion Naira, can be allocated as domestic credit to the private sector. But we have not had up to, I think, less than 2% of that is actually invested. Why? Because we need more quality projects that can be allocated in a manner that the institutional investors can commit capital to. So it requires collaboration. When you look at the market gap here, in the policy document, you see that it's estimated about 15,000 megawatts is self-generated in Lagos State. Now that is value that is not captured. And then when you look at the amount of energy from the grid that goes through the distribution network, it's estimated at less than 5% or about less than 6% of what is demanded or what is actually utilized. So there is an opportunity, and I think now the question is, when you look at the efforts the DISCOs are making, but more importantly, what type of competitive and collaborative environment can be in place to ensure that the financing for the CapEx can come. And there are models that we're seeing evolving, collaborative models where you franchise and you ring-fence assets and you enable long-term capital to come. So I think the point is, we recently supported a company in Lagos to raise 20-year financing. So 20-year money is available, right? It just needs predictable cash flows. And it's not impossible because we're already seeing models that are demonstrating that there are models to demonstrate that predictability. The environment, the framework is critical. And I think hearing from the Office of the Attorney General and also, the policy framework, it's clear that there is a very methodical approach being taken to address the issue of framework. And I think the policy was well written. It actually, reading through that policy, you can't deny that, it's an existential threat if we cannot address the one with the population challenge. We cannot address, the deficit for energy. So we see a huge opportunity. We would like to really see a bit more of that, coordinated approach, right? Because it's not a capital problem, as we can see. It's not a capital problem. It is more of a coordination problem that we need to resolve. And if we do that, the capital will come. So we have the capacity to support, up to 300.
Chinua, I'm going to have to stop you because there is something that you are running away from, glossing over, or trying to avoid. Your shareholders are not exclusively Nigerian. There are other power environments and infrastructure environments to which you have to lend. Are they easier for you than Nigeria?
So we're wholly focused in Nigeria. So our mandate is to unlock, financing for infrastructure in Nigeria.
Good. Now, if that is the case, in the entire power nexus, from generation all the way down to my pole in front of my house, where is your fear? Is it transmission loss, collection, difficulty? What exactly is making us not bankable?
So we have mainly supported companies operating off the grid. We have supported one on the grid, but it's a hydro. Of course, hydro is least cost power, so they have a lower constraint, but it's a generation, asset. Now, the challenge with scaling is, being able to address the value chain problem. If you try to scale, even in any industry, you have to look at the entire value chain. And therefore, you would see that it appears to be very incremental and modular, not large enough to solve the problems, right? So we've supported three companies. The first one operates in Lagos. The second one is operates in Port Harcourt. But they were off-grid. These two were off-grid and had contracted, PPAs that had predictable cash flows. Yes, existing PPAs. So what we hope to get to, right, is again, investors want that long-term predictability. And delayed payments is a challenge. And I think we can, again, when you look at the gap for demand, we're seeing evolving business models. In our office, we operate on solar. We have a solar panel, and it's a hybrid. And you're seeing these energy service companies providing modular power on, for individual off-takers. Now, that in itself, on an aggregated basis, is sizable. So we're seeing companies that are providing these sort of solar blended models, looking to raising up to 10 billion, some up to 15 billion naira. They're solving a problem, right? So I think when we look at the energy mix and the models, we need to be open-minded around the business models that can attract funding. And I think, if you see what some of the conversations the discos are having, I think they are realizing that these franchising of, ring-fence structures are relevant, in attracting capital. But I hope that with the framework being put in place, it actually creates a more predictable environment. And with that, how much of that $10 billion naira equivalent that is available can we attract into Lagos State?
Chino, I'm going to stop you. Before the fire dies, let me put more petrol. Because I'm sure that that gentleman at the end is seething with rage now. Kola, they say that they have all the money that you need. What is stopping you?
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, all protocols duly observed. Just to add to some of the comments made, I always love the way and manner God created man and the world. he followed a sequence. He followed order. He knew what man needed and created those things man needed before he created man. He did not first create man for him to now begin to look in the dark for
Kola, we are
survival.
talking power here. Let there be light.
Interestingly, what you just said is the first thing he said. He said, let there be light. I'll tell you this. Your priority is what you promote. What you promote represents your priority. Nigeria is supposedly poor, presumably rich. But what and where is Nigeria spending our money? That's the issue. If we require industrialization commensurate with the population, then electricity supply should be our #1 priority. And there, I will commend the governor for even starting this at all. But starting it is not so important more than completing it. It's my hope that we'll be able to complete this. The first elephant in the room. I, as an investor, I need my money back. I'm not a charitable entity. Invariably, for every investment I've made, I require a return on that investment. The price of the commodity must be right. Today, what you find is the cost of power is far beyond the tariff the people are paying. Of course, over time, we had to create our own model of survival, which led us into not just boiling the ocean, but creating pockets of successes which Chinua regard as incremental and modular. And what did we do? We went to Ikeja GRA. We signed a 20-hour power supply with them. Today, they are enjoying 22 hours. We went to Magodo. We did the same thing. We've signed today with 17 communities. On the basis of the success of our endeavor, the federal government came up with service-based tariff because they realized that that elephant in the room, if it's not dealt with, you can't unlock the investment required to grow the electricity space. And thankfully, the commissioner, through the mandate given by the governor, came to us to say we want to replicate this. We've signed an agreement now with the Lagos State government for our Limosho local government area, which is the largest local government area in Lagos State, to deliver similar supply. 3 communities are going to be the specimen of this experimentation. And where you have the largest community in Lagos State enjoying that supply, we can now begin to see pockets of development. But we cannot continue to do this and get the kind of result we desire. For us, Lagos State, in terms of planning, we need to go back to brass tacks. And what do I mean here? For you to put an electricity infrastructure in any location, the first thing you do is to look at the population, the demographics of that population, their economics, and the rest of them. When Ogba was created, it was created as an industrial area. A visit to Ogba today will show you a mix of both industry and residential. Now, the infrastructure there was for industries and relatively low level of commerce, but that has changed. You go to Awolowo Road. Awolowo Road was primarily residential. Today, Awolowo Road is purely commercial. The infrastructure in these locations had a design. So invariably, we have to come back to planning. Now let's move on from there. Today, we all say, yes, we want power, more power. The question is, have we truly done a load and demand study, verifiable and dependable, upon which decisions are to be taken? For some of us in the power sector, we agonize. In Ikeja Electric yesterday, we had a customer-centric retreat where we said, in the next 15 years, in our own network, we want to supply 24/7 electricity to our customers. We went through a sequence of steps that would take us there. But the moment you have influx of individuals coming into the state unaccounted for, coming into an area where we have a plan, the distortion has begun that very day. It was said some few years back that 86 immigrants come from other states into Lagos every minute. Because of insecurity, I'm sure that has gone up to over 250. What are we doing? Planning the influx into Lagos. In 1960, we were less than 1 million in Lagos. Today, we are 27 million. What we require as investors are as follows. One, we want to have a perfect understanding of what government policy means. We want to be part of that plan. We want to be able to sign performance agreement on those plans we've agreed and accepted, and we want to ensure that the risk matrix, in terms of the risk regarding each of the components required for people to have electricity, is situated and addressed properly. We want a situation where government of Lagos will back us up because we have something called energy theft. 40% of our electricity consumed by individuals within the state are stolen. Unfortunately, our value system is not strong enough to police and punish energy thieves. We want a strengthened relationship with Lagos State in that regard. For us to be able to collect our revenue, we want power rangers. Governor, please give us people, employ them, let them work with us to be able to recover the energy that people are consuming in the state. In Egmi, we can generate 1,320 megawatts. Our plan was to double that plant in 5 years. This is the 8th year. The basic ingredients for survival are not there. Hence, we've not commenced Egmi 2. Can we start to work with the government regarding Egmi 2? Because why? Big economy, big power. Big power, big economy. It is nice to have pockets of mini grids, off-grid solution, but the future of Lagos State will be driven more by industrial consumption than for residential consumption. The day we begin to produce what we consume and consume what we produce, that's when Lagos State will be great. We are here to support you, sir.
Why are you applauding him? He just brought a menu of Mr. Governor, do this, Mr. Governor, do that. That's not why we're here. Now, they say that the license mentality in Africa, especially in Nigeria, has driven many people into places where they didn't expect to find themselves. Ikeja, are you regretting collecting that license for Lagos?
Not at all.
Okay, so the man is ready to do business. All right. There is another part of this which I find that we are overlooking. If Nigeria is either the largest or second largest economy in Africa, and Lagos State is without a doubt the largest economy in Nigeria, and I'm told it is probably the fifth largest in Africa. Don't we have to worship all of these players to give us power? Because I tell you, 14% of every productive activity in cost profile goes to power in Nigeria. Nowhere else in the world can that happen. You will die as a company. So we're looking at a very existential problem. It's not about your air conditioner or my street lights. It's about the productive activity in the economy, which is kicked or shut down by power. So we're not here for a fireside chat, for Ikeja to exonerate themselves, for Audrey to say we have the gas. We are here to get solutions to our power problem. Now, the only material I had for preparation for this role is a consultative document. I tell you, in all my 43 years as a lawyer, I have never read a better document on power. It not only articulates the problem, it anticipates what is to come. Therefore, what we are doing here is just the window dressing. After this, we must get all of these callers and Audreys into a power room and drill out of them what will lift Lagos. Because when the Africa free trade environment starts to operate, we will be at a disadvantage. So all the dumping you are fearing will happen because they will be able to produce far cheaper to reach the market. It's not China that we're worrying about. It is your local Benin, Togo, who are arming themselves today without 1/10 of our potential to lead Africa in commerce. So we're not talking about just lighting streets and putting on air conditioner. It is good. But we must actually get into a club that agrees that this power thing is important. Now, there are all sorts of power. As I said before, there is clean power, there is dirty power. Whichever one we get, we are going to get a mix, that's for sure. Nolapo, what will environment be worrying about when we get that power? What is going to be your key concern? And what have you prepared in advance of that challenge?
Mr. Governor, honorables, both executive and legislative arm of government, and all protocols observed. Thank you very much, sir, for that question. I keep hearing power. I don't know if we're talking about clean power, renewable energy, or fossil fuels. Now, without paying attention to the environment, all these things we're talking about can be robbing Peter to pay Paul. Without a healthy, clean environment, which the biggest polluter in our air quality is power, we're having creating a problem to solve another problem. Now, Ministry of Environment came up with a climate action plan of 2021, which Mr. Governor has graciously approved. The QR code I gave to the team down there. Please flash the QR code and anyone can read that document. And what it says really, we can take pictures of the QR code. Do we have it? Yes, we can read it all at home later on, and it will be circulated to all registered. What we are really saying here is, let us have alternative sources of power, clean energy, outside the grid. What we're preaching is solar panels. We're also advocating for cleaner and renewable energy. Now I'll give a little story. We decided to hybrid a car in Lasg when we started talking about clean energy, dirty energy, because we did a study with the World Bank and we realized that our greatest source of air pollution is for transportation, followed by industrialization, and then maybe air travel. in Lagos State. And if we say that is in Lagos State, that means it comes from diesel and petrol. And why do we use diesel and petrol? It's because there's no alternative. So I said, okay, you are telling us to use gas. Let's hybrid a car in LASEPA and do a cost-benefit analysis. Of course, we saved over 75% of the amount we would have spent if we were using only petrol. However, for us to come up with a policy addressing alternate and cleaner energy, it must be affordable and available. For this one car, at times we have to travel all the way to Ogun State to get gas. And when we start to talk about demand and supply, it's very difficult for investors to come to Lagos State when there's only 40 hybrided vehicles in Lagos State. To lay pipes, to pass gas, it's not profitable. In LASEPA, we say people, planet, profits. It must be good for the people, affordable, the consumer must not bear the price, the planet itself must be protected. We're dying of fossil fuels and global warming. And it must be sustainable and profitable. Now, when we talk about solar, we have seen a lot of solar installations go funny or not work. We're working with one in LASEPA now, and it is excellent. We have to look at the quality of our investors. We have to look at what they have done before. I am confident to say the Nordic countries and Germany are the superpowers in providing alternate and clean energy. If transportation is our biggest source of air pollution, that means transportation is our biggest source of carbon footprints. That means transportation is our biggest source of burning fossil fuels. Now, for industries being second, we can say, okay, electric cars are futuristic, but we can hybrid our cars if there's gas. We won't come out with a policy to say, hybrid your cars when there's no gas. And if industries are the second most burners of fossil fuel, it means what the grid is giving them is not enough. We have industries running generators 20 hours in a day. When we start to calculate their emissions inventory, it's almost impossible for Lagos to hit net zero by 2030.
Ha!
Yes, sir.
What governor has promised.
he will do his best. And net zero really means not that we will not emit greenhouse gases.
Net.
It means what we are emitting, we are mopping up somewhere else, either by planting trees and using cleaner energy. And that action plan, climate action plan, that has been approved by the governor, aims at that net zero.
Dolapo, you have just sounded very poetic about climate. Well, you know, people don't touch climate, they don't touch it. Let me explain why I'm saying what I'm saying to Dolapo. As a young student of environmental law, when the research was released that Africa's problem is small point sources of pollution, correct, it dawned on me that everyone in this room, including the governor's convoy, is part of the problem. We all pollute. And so what Dolapo is saying is we have to replace those engines. And there are global and local structural schemes that are targeted at investment in this replacement process. But we're not paying attention. And we're not incentivizing different behavior. There are some countries where you cannot import a type of car today. There are countries like that. There are some countries where they have a 30% renewable mix in their energy fuel supply. I think we're about 10 here, maybe 12. So we really need to settle down to some of these issues. Now, I have provoked this panel, but they have remained unprovoked. They have sounded professional, but they have put points out there, and I know that time is not on our side. We have exceeded our allotted time by about 2 minutes. So I'm asking Governor whether we can have 5 minutes more. One minute per speaker. Your last contribution, Chinua, let's face it. What's your last message to this audience?
So,
in 1 minute.
There's significant potential in the country and specifically also within Lagos. We have experienced what can happen and what is happening in terms of what we've supported. We require more coordination and collaboration to achieve the ambitious objective of the electricity policy, and we stand ready to work in partnership with our stakeholders.
Thank you very much.
The electricity policy is fantastic, but we have to start to look for alternate energy, clean, renewable, and reusable. Thank you.
Thank you. I can assure you that this policy addresses that as well. Audrey.
Yes, thanks, Soji. Mr. Governor and everyone else, I want to say that there's some things that have resonated from every single speaker, and you've heard about the infrastructure requirements, you've heard about the investments needing to make sense, you've heard about collaboration, and I love the angle from the environmental angle, which is looking at the environment, because when we're talking smart city, we also want to be thinking about a circular economy, right? And you remember I did talk about the need for heavy industry. I think it's imperative that we ask ourselves as we round up, why have certain things not worked? So if we even take that example of the autogas, the chicken and egg between who is going to provide the infrastructure and who is going to convert the cars first, is that we have to look at what can we do differently. And that's one key example where that collaboration can work between government on the side with its fleets and some heavy fleets user, private sector participants, those who will bring in infrastructure and all that. It's really the message that I want to leave on the table, that the private sector is willing and able, but we face a lot of significant constraints. If we have a higher level of partnership and understanding because we have a shared vision, I think that if we come back to this conversation in 5 years' time, we'll see significant differences in the Lagos electricity market. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Yeah, for me, destiny is not really made through the shoes you wear, but the steps you take. We should not subscribe fully, personal view, to what the world is saying, but we should define our own world, our own realities, where we are, who we are, the stage of our development, and what we want to achieve. When I hear energy transition and I look at the fact that we have 207 million cubic feet of gas unutilized, invariably we're saying gas is clean. Hydro is in the grid today. Hydro is renewable. So we are a clean nation, currently growing green, but our economy is not growing. The men who built America were actively supported by government, and they work together collaboratively to be able to build America. We are here to help you build Lagos State. God bless you, sir.
Mr. Governor, I beg your pardon?
The last speaker.
You let me out.
I forgot to. Don't be virtual next time, eh? Please go on.
I think that they took the right step. I think that Lagos is again leading the way for many subnationals, for all the states, that you cannot stand aloof and let the electricity situation in the state continue the way it has. And Lagos is a unique place. Of the 20 gigawatts of diesel generation that's available in Nigeria, 12 gigawatts out of that is in Lagos. So when people talk about energy transition, every 1 megawatt of gas-fired generation that's added to the national grid is displacing some level of diesel generation. So for Lagos, supporting energy least cost generation and supporting extra generation within Lagos is a good thing for the climate. It's a good thing for Lagos. I think that the efforts that are being made now are commendable and they should continue. I'm very optimistic that in a very short time, we will start seeing the results once the policy is rolled out. In a very short time, we'll start seeing the results. The other thing that I think that is important that we say, because Mr. Additional has talked about how the electricity market should evolve. I think we should also appreciate that the way the markets are evolving all over the world is this notion of one single grid that connects everybody to a system is changing. So there are solar home systems, there are solar hybrids, there are mini grids, there are interconnected mini grids, and we're already seeing some of this happening in Lagos. We're seeing many of our banks switching from diesel to solar hybrid systems. So the future is not that your large, big utility that provides power for everyone. The future is multiple sources of electricity for different people, and the future is already happening in Lagos. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to have been part of this.
Thank you very much. I apologize for not looking behind me. I didn't know that Big Brother was watching me. Mr. Governor, ladies and gentlemen, I did not know that there were people in the audience who would like to ask questions. Our handlers have just told me that we will run a Q&A session. I don't know how long we have for it, but if there are questions, please raise your hand. Any question whatsoever. You have collated them from, oh my God, I'm so outdated.
All right, thank you very much. Let's applaud our panelists for a very fantastic session, a very robust conversation around unlocking the Lagos State electricity market. We have quite a number of questions, but because of time, we won't be able to take everything. But there's a particular question directed to Mr. Tunde Gbajumo, and it says, how do you achieve least cost generation if you are generating from coal, nuclear, or hydro? If your statement of talking to internal plants around Lagos is anything to go by, how will these inefficient plants that are mainly simple cycle gas plants help Lagos to achieve her aim? Do I take all the questions?
Yes, let's have all the questions. And
we'll take three.
Don't forget that most Nigerian questions include the answer. So please, spare us all of those kinds of questions.
Then the second one here is from Lanre from the virtual community. It says, EPSRA is clear on what can be done. How does Lagos State intend to overcome the political and regulatory bottlenecks? There are limitations and demarcations of what can be done outside EPSRA. How can Lagos have an electricity market in areas already being served by national grid?
That's a question for one panelist that is sitting on that side, the governor.
Can we take any more? Okay, we'll just take one more. One more. When exactly is this rhetoric going to transform into practical so that there will be light 24/7?
Okay, thank you. Well, I think the governor should take his own question first. Sir, we know that the politics of power is as important as the mechanics of power. What are you politicians doing? Please take the mic.
Okay, thank you very much, Egbon Soji. So I thought I would have my beats when I finally come there because I've taken a whole lot of notes. So the interesting thing about the policy and the politics of power is I was once on this site, you know, Kola knows very well, and my dear brother, Mr. Gbajumo. I think it's really around all of us being sincere with ourselves and being able to look at ourselves in the truth and say the way it is. We made some fundamental problems when we did privatization. We handed over some of these assets to people who have no idea whatsoever or indeed had other intentions and had other idea about, you know, what the whole spectrum of power generation to transmission to distribution should be. because they thought it was just another GSM. But also, thank you, but also on the side of government, because I was also involved in that privatization, they never even allowed you to, to enter the data room where you can actually value or assess what you were bidding for, right? So they did not also have the full metrics to be able to take those decisions. And so when Kola won his bid and said he was going to reduce commercial and technical losses 8 years ago just by putting 22% or by putting 20%, they didn't know what he was getting into. And so they agreed with him and thought the person that has put 8% based on his own conservatism is not ready to take the bid. So since he put 22%, what process have we put in place to ensure that year on year, we have asked him, why have you not reduced those technical and commercial losses that you spoke about 8 years ago? Nobody. So there's lack of accountability on both sides. So really, we now need to take it back and also say to ourselves that even some of the regulatory frameworks that were set for them when they came on board, right, were not collaborative enough, were not engaging enough, were not forming partnership. Because government, if you handed over something, you really must stay with them to form real partnership. There were no partnerships. So everybody just walked their way, and they had funny people in NEC and whatever all of those names were, who didn't even know what they were doing. So we're here talking about the mistakes we made 8-10 years ago, and we're just trying to fix it. So the fact that we all can even sit here and truly look at ourselves in the face is a good step, in my view, in the right direction. So what we should do is that we should not let it be a talk show. We should hold ourselves accountable. Every year, we should all come and answer the question, how is the policy working? What are the bottlenecks that have? How is Chinua saying that he doesn't want to do risk metrics? How is Andrea ensuring that her gas pipeline, she's ensuring it? How would Dolakbo know that indeed there's air quality and she has a measure of measurements? So it's only when we hold ourselves accountable and we make this thing not a 1 in 5 years thing, but so that we don't get the failure at the end of 5 years. Every 1 year, let everybody come and do their scorecard. And if you are not a good politician at that, you see, for us, we said, and one of the things I've said, that we promised some things even when we didn't have the power. So the power as in the strength to do it when we're political. And I said to them, he knows, the Power Ranger I talked about, we've on our own side, procured about 20,000 meters. Because we realized that part of the intervention we needed to do as a government is that let's stop all this talk. They do not have meters in their house. That's why they're giving estimated bill. So let's buy meters. So we've bought the meters. But they now said to us that for you to even be able to enter our system, we need to know what kind of meter and how we're going to. Okay, so let's form partnership. Let's both be able to deploy those meters. And like I had said, Alimosho, which is the biggest local government, we didn't go to VI. We're not going to Ikoyi. We're actually going to where our population is. And we're saying that's where we want to be able to demonstrate real 20-hour, 22-hour power to our people. We are not playing politics. We just want to have our sleeves rolled up and have boots on the ground and give people power. And that's what we're committed to. Thank you very much.
Who's going to take... there was one question for Chinua. Why are you looking straight? That was a question for That was a question for you. My dear, please read that question again, that first question. It's yours.
It wasn't it.
Was it Bajumo?
Yes. It was
today.
Saturday Bajumo.
Okay, today. Are you still alive?
I'm very much alive. Very much. Thank you for that. I think the question was to do with how do you achieve least cost generation if you are not generating from coal, nuclear, or hydro. The analysis has been done. As we said, it's least cost generation. So they looked at the different sources. So there's solar, there's wind, there's gas, there's simple cycle, combined cycle. So they've looked at everything and they've come up with a list, a metrics based on the least cost for each solution. And I don't have the metrics in front of me, but you can tell that from your question, coal, there are no coal deposits in Lagos. Coal is likely to be very expensive, and I'm sure Ms. Fashawe, who's on the call, will be very unhappy about coal. So I don't think coal will make it to the top list of 10, maybe. Nuclear also is not something that you find explored in Lagos or in this area. And the hydro potential in Lagos is also not great, from what I remember. So yes, all the sources have been considered. The least cost looks at the cheapest first, and then it ranks all the sources all the way down. The three that you've highlighted obviously won't make it to the top. So these are my initial thoughts on the question. Thank you very much, Mr. Ogbadi.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us thank the panelists, including the governor, who has become a panelist ahead of the program. Let us give them a good applause.
Please, can we applaud the panelists? And while they are still up there, the Honorable Commissioner and Mr. Governor will take a picture with them. Please, can we applaud them once again? The PS. Thank you very much. Honorable Fola Jimben Mohammed. Please, let's be careful up there. Thank you. And the National Assembly, Chairman, House Committee on Power, Honorable Chukwuemeka. Thank you very much, sir. And Honorable Folajimi Lai Mohammed. Thank you very much. Please, can we applaud the panelists, Mr. Governor, and indeed the Honorable Commissioner. Yes, at this point, you know, when I'm holding the microphone, you get very powerful. You can tell Mr. Governor, please stay there. At this point in time, I'd like to let you know that one of the things Mr. Kola Adeshino said was that whatever you promote is what you are, and whatever you are is what you promote. I want to present to you a gentleman who is indeed passionate about power, and he said on the 3rd of October, year 2021, I believe God is involved in Nigeria's journey. That is what Mr. Governor believes in. He believes in God, and that same God said, let there be light, and there was light. This gentleman, in March, intervened in 6 years long power outage in 8 Lagos communities. So he's a representative of God Almighty here in Lagos. Please, can you applaud with me as I invite to present a keynote address and formally unveil the Lagos State electricity policy, Mr. Governor, Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think one more time, let's give our panelists, a resounding. They were really square pegs in square holes. They were able to activate the discussion this afternoon. I'm told from my protocol list that the Vice President is with us via Zoom. So I will let's wave to Mr. Vice President of the Federal Republic. Let's wave so that he sees that we're waving to him. Thank you very much for joining us. Members of the Federal House of Representatives that are here, about 3 of them, the ones from Lagos, and especially Engineer Simon Chukwuemeka, who is representing the Chairman House Committee on Power, our own Chairman, Lagos State House of Assembly, Committee on Energy and Mineral Resources, Honorable Folajimi Mohammed. Thank you very much. members of the State Executive Council. It's Larry's nice, what did he say today? It's one of his happiest moments, so that's for Larry. Permanent Secretary, top players in the energy space. I want to thank all of you, individually and collectively, all of our major players in the energy sector. We also want to thank our special keynote speaker, one of us, Mrs. Damilola Ogumbi, who actually can be sitting in any of these seats here as well. I want to thank all of our participants and to thank all of our online participants who have stayed to join this afternoon's event. And of course, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. So an event like this is one event that you don't need to have 500 people or 1,000 people. You just need to have a right size of stakeholders who understands what the issues are and are able to go back home better informed, better equipped than coming here or coming to that event earlier. And I think this is one of those kind of events. And I want to thank each and every one of you, and I think you all deserve a round of applause even for coming to be part of this. For me, so it's just a 3-page, goodwill message or so. But really it's to talk about the conversation that had happened here this afternoon. And if you allow me, I think first is to thank the energy that the moderator, Egbon Soji, brought into play. Because indeed, with his energy, we're able to extract commitment and we're able to see the sincerity of all of the discussants this afternoon. And if anything, I have actually taken a whole lot of notes that I'm going to, turn into my own pages of reminders that we can actually do something different here. So when Larry started, Larry walks up and down a lot. I've known him for like 20 years. I said when we started privatization, he was also in another consortium. His consortium didn't win, neither did mine won. So, so he's been up and down about this energy policy. And I said to him that, see, at the end of the day, what people want, people just want to be certain that, like one of the questions that when and how are we going to get more power, into our homes, into our offices, and to our businesses? And said, Mr. Governor, yes. That's the easiest thing to answer is when we do the right thing. And it goes to show that indeed we have not done the right thing. And I'm sure some of the points that have come here this afternoon is that as a nation, with all of the strengths we have, we need to think back and do the right thing. And I want to thank the discussions that have come out here today, from Tunde Bajumo, who had helped us, from where he sat, to be able to put resources together, to be able to do, and put a very strong team together to work with us on developing the policy. So Tunde, thank you very much, and I certainly know that you would have wanted to be here, but we wouldn't say the reasons why you are not here yet. And so to also talk about, Andre, the point around partnership and ensuring that the only way some of these things can work is when we know and we agree that it's not one person that succeed, but it's only when all of us succeed, as business people, as private sector, but more importantly, with government. And I took the need, for partners to be able to push investments. If you do not have the right partnership, those right investments will not come. You can continue to push it, but it will not come. And you mentioned, for us to have more gas inflow, even things around right of way can throw your numbers out. It hits me, and we cannot, as policymakers, be the same person that will be blocking ease of doing business. So those are some of the things that we all can sit down and see where we can help you, and where we can help businesses like yourself be able to make those investments. And so we are also doing that in the technology space. So we're developing a 3,000-kilometer right-of-way for the telcos, to be able to build fiber infrastructure in the state. So I understand what building those infrastructure is. You need to be able to have it in before you can begin to see, the smart city grow on it. So you are right on that, and I can say to you that we will work with you and other players, at ensuring that we're able to attract, the big, heavy off-takers, like you said, not just the small ones, but the big, heavy off-takers. So Chinua, very typical of him, I've known the young man too for a while. He's always with the money, but he's always very risk adverse. He will always want to be sure that indeed, because of his shareholders, the risk fits in to the kind of, leverage that I want to give to you. But Chinua, like that's why I said, the places where you've played are pretty much, PPAs that are working, that, the sets, cash flows are there. And so it's just to clean up the numbers and see it very pretty. And Lagos State should not default on its PPA. But you see, we need to go beyond that. We need to be able to be audacious. You've said that there's a lot of opportunity with the $10 billion that sits, waiting, for all of us to be able to tap into, So we need to be able to do a bit better with risk assessment, with risk allocation. The population is here. It's growing and the numbers are there. But it's really to be able to allocate those risks and be able to say to your investors and other players like yourself that, okay, so what is it that really is scaring us to be able to make those investments, Because we know that once we have proper regulatory environment, right, the money should flow in. So I want to thank you. I know that you have a whole lot of other plans for us, but please, don't tie us too much so that we'll be able to breathe a little bit. And your risk, go and bring your mother, go and bring your grandmother, go and bring your, let's make sure that it's workable and it's something that we all can swallow. My friend Kola was able to get, his pastoral, very predictable, philosophical speech. That's why people were clapping for him. He's the pastor and he does it very, very well. When he comes to me, he's always coming with speeches, So Egbon had asked you, when are we going to get power? But the point is not lost because with them, they've been able to show that when they identify places where they can collaborate, they will make those investments and they'll go forward, right? He had mentioned Ikeja GRA, he had mentioned Magodo. We saw it as very good testimonial that we also can breed in. So we're doing a lot of great things with Ikeja Disco, right? And I'm sure Eko will be envious. But you see, Ikeja is where our secretariat is. So it becomes a lot easier for us to partner with them. And Ikeja also has a lot of VI Ikoyi type population. And that's what we said. We've procured over 20,000 meters and we're both developing power rangers that will go to those residents and be able to work with their own staff, right? And be able to have meters installed in those residents. And over a longer period of time, we can recoup the cost of the meter. But what it does is that there'll be power in those places. And people have said to us, once they see power, they will pay. And once they have been properly metered, they know what their consumption will be, and they will pay. So we're working with them, and we're ensuring that, indeed, we can go from one community to another community and begin to increase capacity and begin to see that growth will happen. You see, so at the end of the day, I hear Dolapo talk about people, planet, and profit, meaning that people must come first. We must be able to preserve our planet before we talk of profitability. I'm sure there are shareholders that are here that will not agree very much with you, right? But that's the way, to go. But what are my own takeaway? I see that all of them spoke about collaboration, coordination, and partnership. And so for each and every one of us that are here this afternoon, if anything, let us be able to know that one person cannot do it all. We need each other's strengths. We need each other's idea. We need each other's knowledge to be able to form real partnership. And in forming those partnerships is to be able to coordinate those partnerships and be able to collaborate. You can go first and where I'm coming right behind you. And if you need to switch roles, let's understand that we're all in the game together. And as a government, we're not just talking. To demonstrate also in terms of air, clean energy and rest of it, in Ibile Oil and Gas, which is also under the Ministry of Energy, I started a small, interventions where we're installing, LPG plants for cooking gas to clean energy so that Dolapo will be happy. We've done 2 in Ikorodu, and I think Alimosho, and she has a plan to do 20 before the end of next year. So that is replacing, unclean, fossil fuel, how do we call it, to clean cooking gas, and be able to bring what Andrea is talking about, bring, LPG and bring gas, into domestic cooking, and we'll begin to change, the things. And if the ones in the houses are changing, then the ones for the cars will certainly catch up. I'm sure some of the audience don't even know that we've started, LPG plants, in some of our communities. We just commissioned one, 40 metric ton last week in Ikorodu, and she had given me the deadline that she will do 20 before the end of next year. So IOGC want to give you, thumbs up and say continue to. Before we unveil, finally, is to say that one of the things that we are committing to is part of the things Kolacho had said. He said that we need to have a system where the risk matrix, like I said, is properly situated. Lagos State to break up the energy. We need to reduce energy theft, like you said, and we need to be able to support, So it's part of reducing energy theft that we're bringing the meters, and we're ensuring that people are just doing the proper thing. Once they are properly metered and the grid is clean, and the system is cleaned up, they will do the right thing, and they will see a lot of our citizens just playing, the right role. Damilola left us with things to think about. As good as our population is also a drag on us. She had mentioned to us some of the things that we know, that over 90 million of our people still don't have access to power, and if we talk of clean energy, we're the third worst in the world after China, and India. I'm sure those are not the kind of numbers that we want to keep for long. So we all need, to have a change of mindset, and we all as players, because I'm looking at some of you, you are heavy players in this sector, and we just need to do things a lot better. So given where we are as a state government, we call ourselves, the economic nerve center of the country, commercial nerve center of the country. Our GDP is bigger than the GDP of Ghana and Ivory Coast put together, which is true, right? We just need to be able to say the truth to ourselves. We just need to be better behaved. Once we get it right in Lagos, we will have a template to show to our entire country that we can get it right. So if we say that we're a giant in the sun, we're the biggest economy, out of Nigeria, we're bigger than Ghana, we're bigger than Ivory Coast, all put together, we need to have rules of engagement, rules of playing that will also show that, that thing that we talk about, we can indeed do it. So I'm happy that we're here to launch the Lagos State Electricity Policy. The Ministry of Justice, I'm sure they've taken notes, right? It's real part of bringing all the stakeholders together and ensuring that, at the end of the day, the laws that will be coming out, will be things that all of us have an input in and work and defend and ensure that there are no players that have not been well, taken care of. Other than that, it's really just to thank all of you, is to say that we believe that this engagement and this policy will be a significant milestone in the implementation towards improving our electricity access as a state, and will encourage all of you, to play into it. On this note, I'm happy to want to unveil, the Lagos State Electricity Policy, and I believe that this policy will be a working roadmap that will lead to proper legislation and laws that all of us will be truly, really proud of and be able to take forward, going forward. Thank you very much, and I hope that it's been a worthwhile afternoon. It's been an engaging session for all of us. I refuse to read the speech. I just needed to reframe, and do a tiptoe from what Uncle Soji had done here this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much once again, Mr. Governor. One of the things that amazes me the most is how knowledgeable and invested Mr. Governor is in different sectors of the economy. Thank you so much for your commitment to ensuring that we drive clean and affordable energy for Lagos State. At this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we have all been waiting for, and this is the reason why we are here. I'd like to ask the Honorable Commissioner to please join Mr. Governor right here.
The Chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Power, Honorable Chukwemeka, to please join him. Honorable Folajimi Lai Mohammed from the Lagos State House of Assembly is also here. At this point in time,
all right, ladies and gentlemen, in 3, 2, 1, we will then have the unveiling of the Lagos State electricity policy. Please focus on the screen.
Thank you very much. So we have the Lagos State electricity policy with our electric man ready to go. I think he deserves a round of applause. I wasn't expecting that as well.
Mr. Governor, we also have copies of the policy so that we'll have pictures taken with them. The PS, please can you join them quickly? Yes, and that's the symbol of power in Lagos. A few days ago, Mr. Governor had told us that we will have 20 hours non-stop electricity in Lagos. This is one of the first steps to getting that. Yes, we thank you very much. The Permanent Secretary, Ms. Shola Shashore, still has one thing to say to Mr. Governor before we leave.
Thank you very much, Mr. Governor. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for your support and leadership, without which we won't be here today. For our members of National Assembly, to our guests, our speakers, House of ESCO members, body of permanent secretaries, stakeholders, consultants, expedite, friends and family. Thank you very much for coming today. I hear it's time to move to Alimosho, so let's get ready. Thank you, and thank you for lending us your voice and working with us. God bless you all. We thank you very much, Mr. Governor, sir.
members of the National Assembly here present, members of the Lagos State House of Assembly here present, members of the State Executive Council here present, the body of permanent secretaries, all our distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, we indeed appreciate your presence. We say thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon.